Eurobasket is underway, and we already have a huge performance to overreact to. Luka Doncic's preseason MVP rank is garnering strong reactions. The Suns cannot stop imploding, and we almost had our first female NBA head coach. That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories every day with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast. He is a senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt.
I watched like 60 Tamani camera clips today. Some concerning stuff. He is bad at pick and roll defense. Bad. The numbers are terrible. Now, like, he can trail, but the numbers were absolutely horrific for them defensively when Tamani Camera was guarding the pick and roll ball handler. That's your fun fact of the day.
Some would say you watched Tumani clips. From the Locked On Bulls podcast, he's also a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. It's Hayes.
I'm wearing my Dennis Rodman shirt today, one of only two Chicago Bulls NBA champions that I've actually met in person. The other one's was Stacey King, who I've actually done 3 shows with.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. Now, when you met Dennis Rodman in person, did you exchange pleasantries? Did he have anything to say?
I was 9 years old. I think I was just in awe. That's probably what happened.
Mouth agape. I got it. All right, let's move on to Eurobasket. We're still over a month away from NBA preseason games, but some of the biggest stars are playing right now in Eurobasket. You've got Nikola Jokic. You've got Luka Dončić. You've got Neemias Queta. That's right, Queta, a backup big for the Boston Celtics, dropping 23 points, 18 rebounds, and 4 blocks in his debut for Portugal. I'd like to play a game of Guess the Reaction from John Corrales of Locked On Celtics. Hayes, we'll start with you. What do you think John's reaction to a 23-point, 18-rebound, 4-block performance was?
It was the best performance by a Boston Celtic of the offseason. That's probably what he said.
No Celtic has outperformed Neemias Queta. I would bet, I don't know, John's pretty cranky. I'll go the other direction. I'll say that John was skeptical of how this will translate because he is old man on a hill, especially I think when it comes to the Celtics bigs this season.
All right, let's see what John had to say on Locked On Celtics.
It's good that he did it. Much like Summer League, failure is more indicative than success is. You want to see the success, but just like Summer League, if you succeed, it doesn't mean you're succeeding at the next level or it's translatable to the next level. He did it against some of the worst defense that I have ever seen. And I say this because, yeah, this is great. He did what he's supposed to do. NBA defenses are not going to allow him those wide open runs. And this is where we have to be careful. I'm not saying this to knock down Queta. I'm saying this to make sure your expectations are properly set when he faces NBA level talent. The speed, the size, the execution, it's all going to be very different. So what I don't want people to be like is, hey, 23 and 18, he had a pretty decent Euro League. I'm excited. Of course he's going to be the starter. Of course he's going to play these minutes. Didn't you see what he did in Euro League?
Okay, congratulations, Matt. You were correct. Do you agree with him? Should we all be careful about these stats that we're seeing from the NBA players in Eurobasket?
Yeah, I go back and forth on this. The better way, I think, to think of it, because John kind of made it seem like lesser competition, right? It's like, well, when you do this against NBA defenses, I'm like, really? You don't think Katie could do this versus the Charlotte Hornets in a game in January? You don't think you can do this versus the Los Angeles Lakers after they've been out all night in Toronto? I think you probably can. that's how the NBA works because there's too many games. The better way to kind of to think about this is that international basketball is just different. College basketball is different. International basketball is different. Big Three basketball is different. G League basketball is different, and the NBA is different. Olympic basketball, by and large, is a little different from international. Like there are these little differences, I think, that go into how the games are played, how they're officiated, the style of play, etc. And so you may look really great in one capacity. Like Guerschon Yabusele was like dominant in the Olympics, and like he's a pretty good role player again in the NBA after being out for a couple of years. So it's just not necessarily translatable in the same way. It shows you skill sets, which I think is encouraging, but I don't necessarily think of it as like he had a really strong Eurobasket and he could parlay that into no. It's just different. It's an entirely different environment and a different time period. Like you need Katie to be good for the Celtics in January, which is 5 months from now, Hayes. I don't think there's a lot that you can translate from Eurobasket into NBA.
Yeah, I love that you said it's about looking at the skill set because that is what you can get is like where a player likes to score, how they like to score. And then the way that they do that or get to that can be very different in the NBA. Now, you know, I have a player on my team, Nikola Vucevic, who is going to be 18 and 11, 20 and 10 every day, regardless. So like his is translatable, but that's because his game is the same regardless. And as a big man, it's very similar. But I think you have to take into perspective here is like how they get it, how they get their shots off, and then how that could translate to the NBA. So no, it's not one from while the NBA game and the European game, the gap has gotten smaller and smaller between the two. There still is a gap there, and it's not the same game as you said, one for one. So you can't take a EuroLeague, Eurobasket performance and expect that to just translate over to the NBA. He's gonna have to work, but you know, hopefully you can put in the work and figure out how to get him to the spots.
And the exception to this is obviously that Sandro Mamashvili scored 19 points in Georgia's win over Spain, and that means that Mamu is now on track for MVP in the NBA.
SUSV, he's reliable. You can always count on SUSV. All right, I know regardless of what you can take away or what you can't take away, people will be watching Luka Dončić. He should be warming up as we tape for Slovenia's opening matchup against Poland. On Locked On Lakers, they reacted to a poll of ESPN NBA insiders that has Luka as second in MVP voting. Let's get their reaction.
For Luka to finish second in the MVP, he's going to have to not only put up the types of numbers 33, 8, and 9, 9 and 8 or whatever he did a couple years ago. The Lakers are going to have to win 50 games or so. Like if the Lakers win 45, 44, 42 and Luka puts up those numbers, he's not finishing second in the MVP.
Unlikely. I mean, it's not impossible. We've seen the exceptions to the rule, like when Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double. I believe the Thunder were a 6th seed that year, and he ended up winning MVP. And Russ really was, in his own right, one of the stories of the league, especially I believe that was the first season in OKC post-KD. But for the most part, you are correct. Like there is a, you must be this tall to ride the ride type standard for MVP voting, and a lot of that beyond the numbers is also the team success.
Matt, will Lakers team success or lack thereof hold Luka back from a top 2 finish in MVP voting?
I mean, yeah. So there's a couple of barriers to MVP, and like there's pretty strict formulas here that we can use. And you can go back and you could reference Nikola Jokic's 2022 season as kind of an outlier. There will be outliers, but like here's the script. You have to be under the age of 30. So Nikola Jokic out. Okay. We do not see them win after they hit 29. It does not happen. Okay. You've got to be on a team that is a top 3 seed, and you've got to be on a team that has won a ton of games, and you've got to have that statistical profile. Most importantly, though, with the statistical profile, in the modern era, you can't just do points, rebounds, assists. It's got the impact stuff has to be there too. There's too much awareness of these advanced metrics, and there's too many members of the voter block that understand and use those metrics in deciding their vote. So like, if you don't have a great net rating, if you don't have a great EPM, if you don't have all these advanced metrics that people like to clown on, it is going to be a hard time, I think, for you to be able to get there. That said, I think the Lakers are going to win a bunch of games. I think they're going to win 50 plus. I think they'll at least be in competition for a top 3 seed. And I do think that Luka is going to be, I do think Luka is actually going to win MVP.
Wow. Shout out to Luka if he's able to win MVP. I do think he is going to be in the conversation. The top two finish would come down to a lot of what Matt just laid out there. I think the Lakers can get the win total. I'm not really worried about the win total. I think they will be a top 3 seed in the Western Conference this year. A postseason doesn't matter for MVP voting. It just comes down to how healthy can Luka stay with the drop weight. I think that's probably not going to be a problem there. And then how dominant is Luka on ball this upcoming year? And all those things are pointing in the direction that he's going to be pretty good in those areas. So I do think Luka can finish with a top 2 finish. I don't know if I predict him to win MVP. I think SGA is probably has a good chance to repeat there, even though we haven't seen a repeat MVP in a while. But Luka's going to make his case, and it's going to be a strong case, I feel like, over the course of this season.
Coming up on Locked On NBA, more drama in the Suns front office, plus Dawn Staley with some very interesting comments about her experience interviewing for head coach of the New York Knicks. That's all ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts, much less what they're actually worth, whether it's your 401k, your properties, your investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving a lot of money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together into one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally, feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch makes it simple to review my finances with my partner. We can both see budgets, goals, spending activity all in one place. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Before we move on to some of the other topics, the news and notes around the league, I want to go back to this poll of ESPN NBA insiders voting on who they think will win NBA MVP. I didn't really run down the full list, but 83 points went to Nikola Jokic, 62 points went to Luka Dončić, and third was the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, with 46 points. Hayes, does that confuse you that the reigning MVP would be third in this list of NBA insiders?
No, because I think that we haven't seen a lot of repeat MVP, so recently, so I think that makes sense there. But I think there's always that, especially with how much criticism has been around Shai and the grifting for fouls and stuff like that. It doesn't surprise me too much that he'd be lower on the voting. He's going to prove it over the course of the season, but I'm not overly surprised by it.
I think Shai was a completely valid MVP pick.
Yeah,
I think, not to say that Hayes said that he wasn't. I think Jokic might have had the best offensive season in NBA history last year.
Yes.
Like he really might have had the best offensive season. Like really go look to whatever it is that you care about. And you're going to be, it's flummoxing. And now on the other hand of this is like, yeah, but they only won 50 games and their coach got fired. And GM. Like, I get it. I lived through it. It was miserable covering that team last year. I've never covered a 50-win team that was that miserable. But I do think that Shai's performance was as much a product and a team win by the Oklahoma City defense, because if you take out the Oklahoma City defense from a lot of his metric impact, you all of a sudden go like, oh, great season. Oh, like he wasn't the most efficient mid-range shooter in the league. He wasn't like the overwhelming like onslaught. He's not as much of an engine as some other guys. He's an amazing player, finals MVP. He's a champ. He's certified. But I think it is reasonable to be like, can you really repeat that? Now, the flip side of this might be, we could have said a lot of the same stuff about the 2015 Warriors and Steph Curry. And then all Steph did was turn around the next season and have, if it wasn't Jokic, it's probably Steph when he hit 402 threes, I believe was number. Like an absolutely ridiculous on 42% 3-point shooting, like an insane season when they won 73 games. So maybe the Thunder just are better and Shai's better this year. But I do think it's fair to have some skepticism of how this is going to look with OKC. And especially the back-to-back thing is tough because you do wind up judging them against the previous standard. Can he have a better season than last year? And if so, how? You can have answers for that, but that's a question I think you got to answer when it gets into this.
And it looks like it is a three-person race here for NBA MVP, according to this preseason poll. Also receiving votes, though, you've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Edwards, and Kevin Durant, now a Houston Rocket, formerly a member of the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, they cannot stay out of the headlines, even in this quiet offseason. Yes, Matt, you had something?
I just want to say, do not sleep on Cade Cunningham. Do not sleep on Cade Cunningham.
MVP?
For MVP.
All right. Why?
Because I think the Pistons are going to be awesome. I think that the Eastern Conference, if the Hawks aren't as good, if the Knicks aren't as good, if the Sixers sixer it, if the Magic are still bad offensively, the player that I would put the most trust in to be an engine, to have the kind of MVP look, is Cade Cunningham. I think there's a real chance there.
And there's a lot of runway for Detroit, right, in a weakened Eastern Conference, because all the three names that I just mentioned and being in that race, all in the Western Conference, they're going to be battling each other night in and night out. Now, will voters punish Cade Cunningham, Giannis Antetokounmpo for being in the Eastern Conference? I think that's an interesting conversation that we'll all have in the future. But let's get to the Suns drama. When it seemed like the Phoenix Suns might finally have some on-court stability, the drama has once again shifted to the front office. A new lawsuit has been filed against Suns owner Matt Ishbia by two minority owners, alleging financial mismanagement, a lack of transparency, and conflicts of interest. The team is calling the suit a pressure campaign to force Ishbia into an overpriced buyout of the two minority owners. I'll add this quote tweet by Ishbia responding to the same ESPN insiders that we've been talking about in both of these segments now, voting for the Suns to take a tumble next season. He quote tweeted it and said this: "I'm not worried about what the so-called experts think. They had us as a title contender the past 2 years, and we're wrong then. We're focused on making our fans proud by playing great as a team and building a brand of basketball that is tough and gritty," unquote. Hayes, I hand all of that to you and ask, how are Suns fans supposed to feel about all of this?
First of all, this may come back around on my best thing of the week that Matt Ishbia basically said, well, you guys thought we were going to be good and we sucked. So what do you really know? I love that. I love the pettiness part of that. But Suns fans should take all this and question a little bit the direction of the franchise. I think that's fair to question exactly. Like shout out to Matt Ishbia for being willing to spend the money. Shout out to them for moving off for Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant and kind of reconfiguring this team in a way with some young forwards that you have and centers that you're going to develop over the next couple of years. But I think still where this thing is with the drama and with the on the court, like you still don't have a point guard. It's like, did you not learn? We heard that they plan on Jalen Green being their main ball handler. Like there should be still a lot of confusion about what the direction of this franchise is. You cleared it up a little bit, but we're still in murky waters right now when it comes to the Phoenix Suns as a franchise.
I'm going to stand. I'm for the second time in 2 weeks. I did this over the Substack. I'm going to stand up for Matt Ishbia. I cannot believe I'm doing this. Look, was he too impetuous when he came in? Yes. Is it crazy for him to be like, I didn't do enough early on? Dude, you were the reason they went and got Kevin Durant, and then you were the reason they doubled down and got Bradley Beal. Like, everybody knows you were star hunting, and that's fine. That's what owners do, is they think, like, I'll just get all the stars, and it'll be so much fun with all the stars, because everybody wants to be Jerry Buss with Magic and Kareem. Fine. Didn't work, but it seems like he learned his lesson. Like, it really does seem like he may have learned his lesson that, like, hey, we got to build some infrastructure here. We got to have like a good team culture. We got to have like a good team identity. If you go through the details in the suit, right, and the report from Baxter Holmes, there's stuff in there about like this is billionaires squabbling over billions, and this is them trying to squeeze money as well because they're asking for an $825 billion or $825 million bailout here, essentially, to get bought out. The stuff about like where they want to know the money is from may have entered into undisclosed side deals with other members of the Suns. I don't know if that's ownership or what. And then they've raised issue with the funding of the Mercury's $100 million practice facility. Really? Like, Whenever one side is like, why are you spending this money on the players? I start to be like, I don't know. I kind of want to be on the other side. Like, this is what Ishbia has done. Ishbia is like, I'm willing to spend top dollar to get the best facilities, the best players. I want to win. That's what you want. Just because his approach was bad early on doesn't mean that the general thing that he's trying to bring into the team is bad. So I'm actually a little bit standing with Ishbia here right now without knowing as all the details. I'm with Ishbia right now on thinking this is a little bit ridiculous.
I hear you, Matt, and I hear you, Hayes, liking the pettiness from Matt Ishbia, but I do have to recognize that tweet was a little bit like reverse Unoing yourself. You thought we were going to be great, but we were terrible. But that's also my fault.
Isn't that kind of the indication? I do think he touches on something here, Doug, where it's like, you all thought we were geniuses when we had this plan, and then it failed, and you said that I was a moron when you had just said that I was a genius. And he's not wrong. I thought the Suns were going to be the 1 seed last year. I was like, oh, they got all the pieces. They got Tyus Jones play point guard, and like Yusuf Nurkic is like a usable body at center, and he wasn't. Like, I don't blame him. He's not saying like, well, I'm smart because you're stupid. He's saying, I didn't know, neither did you. And he's not wrong, Doug.
And for you too to say that you thought they may be the 1 seed, like, let's not forget that the Suns actually started off looking like they were going to be pretty good last season and came crashing down.
Yeah. Well, is it fair to say that the Phoenix Suns taught us a lesson that maybe we should have known all along? And a lesson I think we're pretty firm on in terms of the NBA draft, where, and people, smart executives have said this over and over, the hardest part of the NBA draft is not evaluating how fast players are, how high they can jump, or any of that. It's about their psyche. It's about, their willingness to improve and work hard and overcome adversity. I think there's a similar thing with teams, and the hardest thing to determine the team's outcome is determining that, like, things that happen in the locker room, team chemistry, just how guys vibe together. We still don't, from an outsider's perspective, and people that are trying to analyze the game, we're great on stats. It's tougher to figure that whole thing out.
And we have like a history here of like teams with Kevin Durant and their struggles in order to actually live up to expectations based off of their leadership stuff. Let's talk more about why Hayes thinks the Rockets are going to win 60 games.
Well, so that was sort of what I was getting at in the last episode when we talked about the Houston Rockets and saying, like, let's, not totally discount that possibility that they are gambling. When we did our biggest gamble show, they are gambling by bringing Kevin Durant into that chemistry that they had already established. And let's see where it all goes.
Are you a little nervous about that, Hayes?
Me? No, not nervous at all. It's not my team.
You're not going to knock this guy. You're not going to knock this guy off the Rockets bandwagon. Not yet. Not yet.
Now watch. Right. Now the season starts and they get out to like an 0-6 start, and Matt's just going to be looking at me like, really, Hayes? Really?
All right. Coming up on Locked On NBA, it appears we were closer than we thought to having the first female NBA head coach. Dawn Staley, South Carolina coach, takes us behind the scenes into her interview for head coach of the New York Knicks. Plus, we get to our tournament of moves, the Final Four matchup before our championship face-off. That's all coming up on Locked On NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every single day. South Carolina coach Dawn Staley said on the Post Moves show, she confirmed that she interviewed for the Knicks job, would have taken it had it been offered, and speculated that her questions to the Knicks brass about how prepared they were to hire the first woman head coach in NBA history may have cost her the job. Matt, what did you make of Staley's comments, and did the Knicks make a mistake by not selecting Dawn Staley?
I don't think so. I think, and this isn't about, I think there's been a lot of very qualified women candidates who haven't been selected yet. I think we will see a women head coach here in the next decade. I think it's, and it shouldn't be as big of a deal at this point as it is. But I don't know. Staley comes with like a lot. Like there's a lot that comes with Dawn Staley. And so I'm not sure that I would be like necessarily bummed that this didn't happen, right? The first woman coach, very cool, very like it's great to be part of history. But Staley, I think, comes with enough question marks about overall fit and performance, especially given some of her attitudes, that I personally am just kind of like, yeah, that's probably okay that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come sooner rather than later. I love that you said it'll happen in the next decade, and it should, right? It absolutely should. Dawn Staley, to me, is qualified, regardless of what comes with her as a head coach or not. It's New York. You should be willing to take on that. Now, if they just were at a place where they wanted to focus on just the roster and playing basketball, they hired the right coach for that. That's Mike Brown. So if that's what they wanted for their franchise, great. But Dawn Staley is more than qualified, and I hope that it happens, whether it's her, whether it's Becky Hammon. Somebody's going to eventually, there is going to be a woman who gets an NBA job, and I hope that they do amazing at it and shut up a lot of the doubters who make it more about the sex of the coach rather than the qualifications and the X's and O's. But that time's going to come sooner rather than later.
Dawn Staley seemed to frame it as, I think she said she shot herself in the foot with those questions. But I would challenge that a little bit and say that I think she was very smart to ask those questions, particularly to the Knicks front office that hasn't exactly, established themselves as one of the most, deft front offices in the NBA. That like you should ask those questions and make sure that they're prepared to deal with all of that flack, because if they're not, then it's almost guaranteed to be a disaster. So Matt, I actually think she was smart to ask those questions.
I mean, look, Knicks coach is not a great job. It's not a great job. You are in the toughest media market. You have one of the worst owners ever in all of sports. You have a roster that is largely put together through politics. Like there's a lot of politics in the construction of that locker room. And you have an organization that historically is just like rife with politics. That organization has always been known to be one where there's a lot of like power fighting in there. I don't necessarily think it's a great job for any coach. It's why Mike Brown might honestly be one of the better choices available of all those, because Mike Brown's just going to be like, yeah, I've been around this before. I've been around the league long enough. It's fine. Like, I don't care. Like, he's just going to do his job. And I think that's probably what you need in that gig.
Hayes, final word.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Matt said. Like, if they just want a coach who's going to come in, do his job, Mike Brown is the guy there. I would have loved to see what Don brought to that, especially offensively. But like I said, we'll see it at some point sooner rather than later, I believe.
All right, let's move on to our tournament of moves. It is the second Final Four matchup. It is Akeem's Dream Shake versus Michael Jordan's Post Fadeaway. The YouTube vote is in. And we've got a similar vote to our Skyhook versus Dirk's One-Legged Fadeaway matchup. The vote is 62-38 in favor of the favorite, Hakeem's Dream Shake. But that's only one vote. We have Matt's vote and Hayes' votes. Hayes, are you willing to save the GOAT, Michael Jordan, and his post-fadeaway shot here and tie it up amongst the YouTube vote?
Yes, I am. I'm going to go with Michael Jordan's post-fadeaway here. And I know it's probably not going to win, and I'm not going to be surprised if it isn't. But I think the fact that Michael Jordan, he did it. He won 6 titles. You look at Hakeem and his Dream Shake. He won when Mike wasn't in the league. So I'm going to go off the pettiness alone, and just because it's my guy on my team, and not to say that that's the only qualifications. I think the post fadeaway is is an awesome move. It's an iconic move. It could be, if we look at new icons for the NBA logo, that's new options for the NBA logo, that would be on that list. So I'll go MJ's post fadeaway here.
Quitters never prosper, Hayes. Quitters never prosper. Like, if one of us left this show, they could never be considered one of the greatest of all time to host this show. Like, they couldn't do that. They just quit and left us. That would be atrocious.
That's crazy. Like, why would that ever happen, man?
I don't know. I would never do that. I love this show. It's Hakeem's Dream Shake. Get out of here. It is such an iconic move. It is such a beautiful set of moves. It is so much more difficult. There's so many more variations on it. And it was facing the best class of centers in the history of the game. I think you can argue that perimeter defenders, we can kind of go through different eras and kind of argue, and especially with where illegal defense was in the 90s with Jordan, that to me changes a little bit of this conversation as well. What I think is, I would have liked to have seen, if we do this again sometime, like a one single, because we had some of this where it's like the Dream Shake where he hits it over and over. Like, he did it millions of times, the Skyhook millions of times. And then we had like Dr. J's scoop layup, which is like a one moment, because his hanging switch hand layup versus Dr. J's would have been an absolutely phenomenal matchup. There are so many moves that make up the greatness of Michael Jordan. Like, there's so many moves that make up why he is the GOAT. bullying people around him, being absolutely cruel to others for no apparent reason, bailing on your team for 2 years for unknown reasons that still remain questionable, pushing off against the Utah Jazz to secure the 98 title. There's so many things that make Jordan the GOAT. We can't nail it down to just the post fadeaway. Hakeem's dream shake advances.
Sure, but one could argue that, famously quitting turned Michael Jordan into his final, most deadliest form. One could argue that sometimes quitters do win.
Not quitting as much as taking a break. He lost his father. He took a break.
Took a break. We were on a break. That's right.
We were on a break.
If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Thanks so much to Matt and Hayes for their expertise every single day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every day. Until next time, be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here tomorrow to wrap up the week on Locked On NBA.